Hi, this is Robert Gordon. The spirit of rock and roll lives right here at True Oldies 105.9.
It's now or never. My love won't wait.
You're rocking in the Grooveyard on True Oldies 105.9 WJZW. I'm Tom Grooms, and in the Grooveyard this morning, our one and only Robert Gordon. He has roots here in Bethesda, Maryland. He's living up in New York, but Robert is an actor and an active musician for the past going on 50 years.
Good Lord, is it that long?
It's getting up there. I mean, when you think back, I mean, you ran the streets here in Montgomery County. You had the band, of course, the Newports, right?
Right, and before that, the Confidentials when I was about 15.
Definitely. And you saw the music scene change here in Washington in the early 1960s. We had Bobby Howard on, as you know, with the British Walkers. And we were talking about the evolution and the change. And you were here in Montgomery County in 1964.
I was, and the music scene there was really, really cool, man. I remember going to the Bayou, seeing the Telstars, and actually I saw Bobby Howard and the British Walkers at the Round Table, I remember back then, and of course the Chartbusters and groups like that.
Of course, and we were on the air a couple nights ago. I was playing Fire by the Pointer Sisters, and I mentioned you and Link Wray because Link brought me that tune over 30 years ago. He knocked on the door at the radio station, said, I got something new that we're going to do. You and him were going to go into the studio and cut it, and he brought me the demo. Tell us a story about that tune.
Well, I was fortunate to meet Bruce Springsteen actually before I was even recording on a major label, and we became pretty close friends at the time, and I guess about 2 years later, he said, man, I got this song. I think you might like it. And that was it, Fire. He gave it to me, and he actually played piano on our version of it.
You're in the Grooveyard on True Oldies 105.9. Our guest on the phone from New York City, Robert Gordon. Robert will be rolling into town on Friday night. He's coming into town with a band called The Gang They Couldn't Hang. And what a lineup. You've got guitar virtuoso Chris Spedding with you, your partner in crime.
That's right. Chris has been with me for, good Lord, we started working together in the early 80s, and then I think we worked together for about 10 years, and then we stopped working until, I guess, about 4 years ago, and it's great to have him on board again, of course, and this time we're trying something a little different. I'm excited about it. We got Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats playing drums, and Glen Matlock from the Sex Pistols on bass, so it's going to be exciting, man.
Now, Slim Jim, is he sitting down, or does he still stand up?
He's still standing up, man.
He's
standing up, yeah.
That's excellent. How'd you put this band together? What was the impetus?
Well, I really don't know how it came about. We've been talking about trying something with the Stray Cat rhythm section for some time, but Slim wanted to do it, and actually Chris Spedding produced the early Sex Pistols demos, and of course he was familiar with Glenn, so he suggested giving him a call, and that's how that happened, man.
You're in the Grooveyard on True Oldies 105.9. Our guest on the phone from New York, Robert Gordon, who rolls into town on Friday night, August the 14th, at the legendary 930 Club. That's Seth Hurwitz's crib. You know that. Seth started in radio when he was 14. I gave him his first job on the air. Did you know that?
I did not. That's amazing, man.
Ask him about it, and now he's doing everything. IMP, It's My Party, and of course he's managing Merriweather and Nissan, but he's a rock and roller. He goes way back. And he saw the whole punk thing start, the new wave music, its inception in the 1970s. Mm-hmm. And you were up in New York. You were at CBGB's. You and Link Wray, Blondie, Television, you guys all hung out, right?
Well, yeah. In fact, I was doing that before I hooked up with Link. And we were sort of one of the premier groups on the scene at the time, Tough Darts. And we all rehearsed in the same places. And it was a lot of excitement back then. Richard Hell and Tom Verlaine and, of course, the Heartbreakers and Blondie and Ramones, a lot of great people came out of that, and I guess everyone knows we just lost Willie DeVille, unfortunately, but, life goes on, man.
He definitely had savoir-faire, no doubt about it.
It's true, and it's always, shocking to lose our friends and musician friends, but thank God that we're going to be here, and we're going to keep the flame, man.
And you got to look at it like this. He's up there getting you gigs in the land beyond, right? You know what I mean?
There you go. And him and Billy Lee Riley both.
Exactly. Now, that's funny you mentioned that. We just lost Billy Lee Riley, and I think it was about 30-some years ago, you and I and Link Ray sat around the studio in Bethesda doing an interview, and I played Billy Lee Riley's Red Hot, and you and Link had that tune out at the same time. Remember that?
We sure did. And, it wasn't till like maybe 20 years later I actually met Billy, and we became fast friends. And I'll tell you, he was such a down-to-earth human being, and I'll never forget meeting him. And we actually got up on stage and did Flying Saucers Rock and Roll and Red Hot together. So he's a dear, dear friend, and we'll never forget him.
That's great. And listen, here we are. We're getting ready to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Woodstock. That's more my bag. And as I think back, during Woodstock's, I guess, 8th or 9th, I guess it would be the 8th anniversary, we lost Elvis Presley on August 16th.
Well, it's amazing because I was happy to do a tribute album to him. That was our last album me and Chris did with the Jordanaires, and we just wanted to pay tribute to the man. So we'll never forget him, that's for darn sure,
And I'm glad you did it, because you both must have said to yourselves, it's now or never, we have to do this. And you did, and we're going to play something from that in a little while, but we want to get you to be DJ on the air here this morning. And when I first knew of you or started working with you, a cat named Richard called me up one time when I was on the air, and he said, I'm producing Link Ray, and Link actually got a hold of me.
That's right.
Sure.
Richard Goddard, my first producer.
So I remembered Richard from the Strange Loves, I Want Candy.
I was fortunate enough to meet Richard Goddard in the mid-'70s, and he took me to Private Stock Records and then to RCA. And he was one of the Strange Loves, and I Want Candy was one of his hits. And I think you ought to set that tune up as DJ this morning in the Grooveyard. I think it would only be apropos, because that's where it all started, right? Well, Richard Goddard was one of the first cats to come out of that whole sort of Tin Pan Alley thing. He wrote My Boyfriend's Back, and he wrote for the McCoys, and I Want Candy. This is Robert Gordon, and we're about to listen to Richard Goddard, my early producer, and the Strange Loves, I Want Candy, on 105.9, DC's Greatest Hits. You're in the Grooveyard on True Oldies 105.9. On the phone with us, Robert Gordon, who'll be in town Friday night at the 9:30 Club. Tickets are still available. He's in town with Chris Spedding. It's an all-star lineup. One of the members from the Sex Pistols and the Stray Cats with him. Give us the lineup again, Robert. Chris Spedding, Glen Matlock from the Sex Pistols, and, of course, Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats. Tell us a little bit more about It's Now or Never, the tribute to Elvis, because it's very apropos, especially this time of year in August as we celebrate the anniversary of his passing. Well, that's true. My second album I did on Private Stock Records with Link was called Fresh Fish Special, and that's when I first met the Jordanaires. And it wasn't until, good Lord, that was in the 70s, and then we waited until 2007 to hook up with the Jordanaires again and do a Elvis Presley tribute album, and it's entitled It's Now or Never. And you did a good job, because you covered all eras of his music. I mean, the early rockabilly, even the Arthur Big Boy Crudup stuff, My Baby Left Me, and you did I Beg of You, and you did a tune that you and Link turned me on to, as well as John Van Horn, Love Me. Well, that's from one of the movies. I mean, that was one of my favorites, but how can you not pay tribute to Presley? I mean, he influenced all of us, Sure. What are we in store for Friday night when you hit the stage at the 9:30 Club? Well, we're going to do a mix of old stuff and more modern things. Of course, Chris is going to do a bit, and Slim Jim's going to do a couple of his hits, and so is Glenn. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man. That's excellent. And doors open at what time down there? I believe they open around 8, and there's an opening act, I think the Flesh Tones, and then we go on at 10. So I hope everybody comes out to see us, man. I mean, I've always loved coming back to Washington. I was, born and raised in Bethesda area, and I just like coming back and seeing old friends and meeting new ones. And, Tom, it's always great talking to you, brother. Friday night, August the 14th, come on down to the 9:30 Club. We'll kick the weekend off right. The gang They Couldn't Hang in the house. And if you want more information about what Robert Gordon's up to, you can go to his webpage, which is, Robert? Well, I think right now we're reworking it. Don't go to the old one, but there's plenty of stuff on the web on Robert Gordon, and, of course, there are links to Chris and Rockabilly Hall of Fame, and if you need to get a hold of me, just call Tom Grooms.
That's right. We're very proud of you here. I mean, not only are you a musician, but you've done a little acting in your day.
Well, I've done a couple of commercials. That's about it. You know, I'll be the first to admit that I am not an actor.
Well, you could have fooled me, I tell you what.
Well, thank you, my man.
Have a safe trip back to the nation's capital on Friday. We'll see you down at the 930 Club. And again, if people want more information, your MySpace page will be up very soon, right?
That is true. And thanks again, Tom.
Robert, thank you so much. And please tell Chris I look forward to seeing him and everybody when they get into town on Friday night.
Well, I sure will, man.
Well, let's go out of here with something from It's Now or Never. I want to do I Beg of You because I think you do a great job on that tune. Can you set it up? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, you know, it was so hard coming up with the tunes to put on this album. It was like, I mean, good Lord, there's so many of them. It was just like, you know, it was tough. We didn't want to do the obvious ones, so we sort of mixed it up. But I Beg of You was one of our favorites, and I think it came off pretty good, man. Definitely, and this includes the original Jordanaires, right? It certainly does, man. Here's Robert Gordon and Chris Spedding from It's Now or Never. I Beg of You on True Oldies 105.9.